Welcome to With You Podcast.
where we explore relationships and life transitions.
I'm David.
And I'm Tara. Do you ever feel like you're just living on the edge?
All the time, especially right now.
Yeah, I feel
I
like
feel on the edge.
I know, I can see that, and I feel it, and I think sometimes, actually, we just were with some friends who said, "What's your tipping point?"
Yeah.
You know, like of
I think it happened about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we're just tipped over.
Are we tipped over? Have we reached that point? It's kind of that capacity level, like, when things get busy, there's limits, and then you start to question your life choices, and you wonder, what am I doing here? What's my purpose? What things am I doing that are actually, meeting my goals? What things have I just added on and said yes to?
Yeah, I think that's a perpetual state for us. And the other piece is, like, we say this all the time, but we're busy and we're tired, and people start to say that about us. And it's
Well, I try not to say that because I feel like that's just a refrain, especially, I don't know if it's our culture, if it's just where we live, or if it's universal, but everybody kind of compares how busy their calendars are. I really don't like to come across that way, but I feel that's still the narrative.
It is. And we live, like we always say, we live life in the fast lane, and we're just flying with our hair on fire.
Yeah.
And it's not I don't think it's a really good way to live.
No, but it's of our own doing. That's what I keep saying. Like, whenever we complain, like, oh my goodness, we can hardly keep up with the things we've got to do. And then we look at the things we've got to do, and we created them all.
You remind me of that in teaching, because I complain about how much work I have and I have to grade, and you're like, you made the assignments.
Right. Who assigned those papers?
Yeah. So there is a sense of this tension between, I think it's necessary, and I've created it, and I don't like it. And I think that's the feeling that we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we're living in the soup of it.
Yeah.
We thought, let's just talk about the hurry, fast lane, fast response kind of life that most people are living.
Yep. And that we definitely are. And so
Yeah.
we want to talk about, why are we so busy? Why are we in such a hurry? And what can we do about it? And I don't know if we're going to have that answer of what can we do about it.
We might not be the ones to have the best answers, but we will explore that, because it does feel like a constant topic of conversation just in daily life, of like, running to the next thing. And then, why do we do this to ourselves? And then actually we seek it.
Yeah. And wouldn't it be nice to have a little downtime? Then we have downtime, me more than you. And then it's like, we need to be doing something. I can't just sit around.
Yeah.
So there's this mixed message we give ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people do that, of, I need a break, and yet I have to be doing things. And so today we're going to talk about that.
Do you remember a time in your life when you weren't busy, when you felt unhurried?
Yeah, I think it was 1986, 87.
In high school? Really?
Yeah. I was not an overachiever in high school. I lived in a beach community. So I was really good. Like, my job was, we've talked about this before, was driving a trolley. So I just drove in a circle for 8 hours, and it was a half an hour circle. So 16 circles. And it was just kind of meditative. And I wasn't in a hurry. Like, it didn't matter how fast or slow you drove the trolley, you're going to have to do it again. And so it would just be chill. There was no pressure. How about for you?
I wouldn't have thought of high school for me, for sure. So I'm just imagining what that was like for you when you only had a few things. You had, if you weren't playing football or baseball,
I was driving a trolley.
You were driving a trolley, or probably at church.
Yeah,
or school, when you had
beach,
to be
if it was summer
at the beach.
Yep. Yeah, that was about it. That was the total. No,
that was the total.
The sum total of my day. This is going to be interesting, because still a little jet lagged, and so I'm not sure that my brain and my mouth are connected.
Yeah, I don't think they are fully connected. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what comes out. But yeah, so that's
funny.
That was a simplistic time of life for me.
Yeah. Because I feel like that's when my busyness ramped up. Like, I feel like I was the most unhurried when we lived in Kenya, because there wasn't, social media. We didn't have TV. We didn't have, I mean, school was pretty basic. And then
Yeah.
when we weren't in school, we were just wandering. We were climbing in trees and
Yeah.
digging holes, and there wasn't a feeling of, we have to do the next thing. But I think when I came to high school in the States, maybe it was the beginning of FOMO. Like I felt like I had to catch up with all my peers
Yeah.
and all the things they knew and did, and I didn't understand the sports and the clubs and, all of the things. So I
Yeah.
joined all of the things, like
Oh,
all of the things.
yeah, that doesn't sound like me. But I was just thinking this will be a horrible thing to say, but maybe it'll be fun for the podcast. So I think my life got busier once I kind of committed to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. We
know,
never traced this back like this,
no,
but maybe I'm the problem.
no, I don't think you're the problem. I think it's we had purpose, and so it's
Yeah.
either FOMO, which is fear of missing out, and so we have to do everything, or it's like we have a purpose and we're driving towards something, and so we just keep saying yes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Both of our kind of less hurried times involved play.
Yeah.
Like you're playing out in the
Oh, yeah.
African savannah,
Yeah.
and I was playing on the beach, and so there was something significant, maybe as a solution to this busy and hurry
Yeah.
is play.
Well, and I'd say as a couple, the time in our lives when I felt the least hurried, and maybe you won't agree because your purpose in life was different then, but when we lived in California and you were in your master's program, you had a lot of work to do,
Yeah,
but I think we didn't have as many things to do. So I
no,
think life was simpler in a way. Like you had a list of assignments always going on,
yeah,
but we also found time to go to the beach and to hang out with our friends and serve at our church, but it wasn't a jillion things,
yeah.
you know?
No, and we even managed to go to like the Hollywood Bowl and hear Nat Cole, and so yeah, I think it was like there was a lot to do, but it wasn't like in a hurry.
Yeah, I don't remember feeling rushed and hurried. It's just, you know,
No,
pretty
even
simple.
even like so we lived right by Colorado Boulevard, which is where the Rose Parade comes down, and we would get up like 3 minutes before the parade, the floats would come by, and we just kind of saunter down, talk to the guy that's grilling sausage and onions on
At
the
6 in
street
the
corner
morning,
at 6 in the morning,
get some coffee.
and just kind of hang out. And it was we were excited to go see the Rose Parade, but it was chill.
Yeah. So I think maybe what we've done in our lives is blame the busyness on our children because, then we moved here,
There's always someone to blame.
right?
It's you, it's the
And I
kids.
think there's some truth to that because with 4 kids and all the activities that surround them and our own activities and careers, it just compounds. It
Yeah.
creates just a larger number of things we're keeping track of. And it was our own doing that we did sign them up for as many things as we did.
Yeah, that's
But I
true.
think life got really fast then,
Yeah.
really fast.
And I think for me, I think it's felt when I've gotten deep into my career, it's gotten fast there,
Hmm.
and there feels a pressure. It might be a time issue as well, because I think with kids, there's like, oh, we only have this amount of time with them at this age or at the next age, and so there's a running clock, like any good television
Mm.
show. Like remember that TV show 24? It
You
was like
loved
tick,
that.
tick, tick. There's always a clock running, and
Yeah.
that clock really kind of put some pressure on and
Mm.
urgency on everything else. And I think with kids, there's a sense of time and urgency. Like people are like, I can't wait for this stage to end, or I just want to keep them in this
Mm.
stage. There's a sense of pressure. And I think in our careers and as we get older now, it feels like there's a bit of a rush because it's like, oh, I have X amount of years left in my career.
Yeah.
I got a lot to do. I got to push and say yes and hurry.
Hmm.
So as we've been talking about this, I think that's a piece for
Yeah.
me.
I hadn't thought about the time thing, but I think there is that performance pressure combined with a limited amount of time
Yeah.
that adds to that feeling of like, well, we got to do it now. We got to, while the opportunity's here, you've got to achieve this, and you've got to, that kind of adds to that feeling of adding things to your plate
Yeah.
because,
And I think there's cultural pressure.
hmm
Like growing up in a conservative Protestant church, of like the Protestant work ethic is something people talk about. It's like you are expected to do well. And so it's kind of a badge of honor, like I'm really busy or I have to hurry because I have the next thing. So there's kind of a culture of, um,
Yeah, there's a badge of honor to being busy because idleness is what do they say? Idleness is the devil's work or
workshop.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the devil's workshop. Like bad things happen if you sit still.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, but that was a message I received somewhere
Yeah.
growing up that,
Let's just blame your
no,
parents.
I don't think it was directly from my parents. I don't, but
Yeah.
somewhere in
Yeah.
that growing up of like literally if you're sitting still, bad things will catch up with you.
Yeah. So you better be busy doing the right things.
Mhm.
And so any good thing that comes, you have to say yes to. And it is, I mean, I think if we're really honest, like we like being seen as busy.
Yeah,
We like it and we don't.
I know. Well, I've given this a lot of thought because I don't like the comparison culture of, oh goodness, I don't know if we can get together unless I check my calendar and see what I'm doing next year kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do think I do thrive when I'm busy. I feel better when I have things to do.
Yeah.
And I think it comes from the purpose thing, feeling good about contributing something and being creative and adding something. And so I've said this often to people in my life is I have more ideas than time and people who want to listen to them. I always do have ideas of new things I want to do,
Yeah.
new ideas to contribute. And
New adrenaline
so if
seeking.
somebody, yeah, and that's the play part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think for some people, that busyness and productivity is part of the way they're built. I feel like it is a bit for me. Like
Yeah.
I feel better as a person when I'm moving, but I think there's a downside, a bad side to that too.
Yeah, and our friend highlighted that of the tipping point, right? There's
Yeah.
a balance between purpose and meaning and overstretching and afraid of the silence. I think it's interesting because in therapy we talk about the use of silence,
Hmm.
and it's introspective, and usually the first person to break the silence is the most anxious. They're not able to sit with themselves and sit with it. And I think busyness sometimes is a fear of really sitting with ourselves or looking at where our life is or what's really going on.
Hmm.
And by staying busy, we're kind of outrunning the fear of
Yeah.
self-examination.
Or not having to think or listen to what's in your own head.
No. And Lord forbid we listen to what's in my head. So it might be good I stay busy.
Yeah.
But I think that's a one for a lot of people of you stay busy because if it's not the devil's workplace, but it's like, oh, all the self-doubt, the internal messages that I either got from my growing up catch up with me
Right. You have to
in the
think about it and
silence.
do something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that's partly the escapism too.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, that's a good one.
being busy is an escape from
Yeah.
other things that you might maybe should deal with.
Yeah.
It can just be like, I'm going to throw myself into these other things and it keeps my wheels moving and
Mhm.
it's just getting away in a way.
And it can be seen, the escapism. It's a pro-social escape. Like
Hmm.
substance abuse, not really a great escape. Affairs, not a great escape. But man, workaholism, like staying busy,
More
at
acceptable.
working 100 hours because you're making money, providing for your family, but you could also be staying busy to stay away from deep intimacy with the people around you.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what comes up for me when you talk about what is the tipping point when
Yeah.
busyness that's productive turns into busyness that's pathological or interfering. And it's that, is it actually, you know, destroying relationships or just keeping you separate from meaningful things? Is
Yeah.
it starting to interfere with the life you want to live?
Yeah. I think that's a good measuring stick. So how are we doing with that? fairly busy. Is it intruding in our relationship? I think it is because you're
I,
like, you haven't been around. That was a comment this morning.
yeah, I mean, and I think it is intrusive in our friendships in some ways, our busyness, and
Yeah.
because we're not as available. We're not just, we don't have a lot of downtime or, spontaneous moments.
Yeah.
So I think we're like I started by saying we're on the edge. I think we're a little bit on the edge of
Yeah.
the between productiveness. And when we sit down and go, well, then what would we remove? Because everything we're doing, we believe in. There's not anything that's keeping us busy that we feel like is a bad thing
Right.
or doesn't align with our values and what we're trying to do in the world. But as somebody else said, don't let the good be the enemy of the best.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I think about pretty often
Yeah. And
of what good things have I signed up for that are getting in the way of some of the better things I should be doing or not doing.
right. So then it's really a hard choice because
Mhm.
it's not a bad thing that you're trying to cut out. It's going to probably be a good thing that you're going to cut out. I'm not there yet. I'm not willing to cut out good things.
That
to
is
be honest,
uh,
like when we started talking about this to talk
uh-huh.
with you all about it, we realized real quickly we have a problem.
We do have a
Like
bit of a
we're on the
problem.
edge and we're not sure we want to do it any. We know what the right answer is.
Yeah.
The right answer is, oh, we need to like say no to things and slow down and be present in meaningful ways other than how we're being present in doing things. And I have this favorite philosopher, Peter Kreeft, and he says there's two ways of thinking about human beings. There's human beings of like being with each other and human doings. And I think if we talk about tipping point, we slide into the human doing,
Oh, for sure.
and your
Yeah.
identity is about what you do versus, oh, we're just going to sit and hang out, I guess.
Yeah, the sitting is not what we're really good at. But we did talk about this. Are there times when we can intentionally kind of slow the pace, slow down you know, the carousel,
Yeah.
whatever we're
Yeah.
on that's going around and around and just like savor the moments. And I think we have the ability and we do that sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's certain times I think that it's part of our rhythms to have meals with friends and people we like to spend time with. And when we do that, we really aren't thinking about anything else. We're not multitasking. We can be present with our friends and let that meal go on for hours.
I know our friends are usually the ones getting
And like,
tired of
oh, it's
us.
time to go.
What do you mean we've been sitting here for 4 hours at a dinner table? But yeah, I think we can savor. I think it's how do you say no to good things, and then how do you prioritize it? Because for both of our careers and what's in our lives right now, everything is so intertwined. Like it's not just, oh, 30% of things I'll say no to and I'll have time. Um, it's complicated.
Yeah, it is complicated.
I'm having a like existential crisis here as we talk about this because I'm like, Tara, help me. Like,
We
tell
sh-
me what I should
I
say
know.
no to.
We knew this would be a little bit dangerous to
Ugh.
talk about because we're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And maybe looking at you now, we probably should have had like a counselor waiting to debrief with us afterwards.
We can still call someone. There's but I think that I am thankful for my career because my career requires some slowing down. So
Hmm.
I'll be on sabbatical. And for those of you that don't know, that's a forced break by your employer. It's basically I have one project and just have to supposedly say no to all the other things.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, we were just looking at that sabbatical calendar and it's
I
already pretty full.
I know. I love the way you and I look at life differently. I'm like, I'm on sabbatical. Everything will be okay. You're like, well, let's draw out the calendar. And then there's not a lot of break.
Not a lot of breaks.
We've kind of filled it in.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, it is a struggle because I think we are at a time in life when we have curated things to be involved in things that we really feel are valuable, and we have said no to some things. So the things that are still there are things we really want to do. We really want to be a part of. We really want to contribute to. And so it's very difficult. But so you brought up your philosopher.
Yeah.
I have a book that's been sitting by the couch for I don't want to say how many months on my to-do list of.
It's a great title.
Yeah. I bought it because I thought I should read it.
Yeah.
And I've been too busy to read the book that's called Slow Productivity. But I got it out to look at what the key points are, to think about, what are some recommendations.
Yeah.
And the author, Cal Newport, says he has top three things kind of that you should think about when thinking about staying productive. It's not saying let's go idle, let's go crazy, let's just lie in a field looking up at flowers.
Oh, I'm glad.
However, the book does start with a story just like that, of a writer who writes for the New Yorker, I think, and he was stuck on his next article. He had done all the research and gathered tons of facts and whatever he needed for this long article, but then he couldn't bring himself to write it.
Yeah.
So he was just laying, on a table somewhere looking up at the sky, and he came up with this idea, but it took this idle time of not letting anything else in to let all that stuff he'd already gathered gel into the kind of the running theme for this article. So it starts with that story, but the top three things are do fewer things.
Oh.
So it starts with simplifying, so not as many things coming in. Work at a natural pace, so allow time for thought, creativity, because creativity is stifled when we're just kind of running.
Yeah.
And then obsess over quality. So it's not just pumping out stuff, but really, if you have that more time, you can really work on, showing work that's meaningful and deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those were the suggestions.
Okay.
It gives us some thought about how we could
incorporate
those things.
He gave us an invitation to slow down.
Yeah.
And I think those are great ideas. I don't know if I want to do any of those.
There's the problem.
There is the problem, because it's a choice. Back to our beginning, it's a choice. We've created this culture of speed and culture of hurry, and I'm convicted because there's two people I like reading a lot: Dallas Willard, and the guy that wrote I can't think of his name, Mark Comer, the something about hurry. Oh, the relentless pursuit of hurry. No, that's not it. But it's the ruthless. It's the ruthless.
Should I Google it?
Yeah. While I'm struggling here to think,
you keep trying.
The ruthless persistence of hurry. Nope, that's not it.
Elimination.
Oh yeah, the ruthless elimination of
there
hurry.
You go.
No wonder I couldn't think of the word eliminate, because I can't say no to anything.
You can't eliminate things.
But what
Yes.
what John Mark Comer and Dallas Willard talk about is that hurry is the enemy of intimacy. Hurry is the enemy. Oh my, enema.
Jet lag.
Hurry is the enema of love. That's not right either. Oh man, I am so sorry. Let me just slow down a second here. That we really can't go deep if there's not space. And I know you and I were doing some writing together. We need to get out of our house. We go to the public library. We get a room.
We do.
And then we work.
And then we write on the whiteboard.
We write on the whiteboard. And little kids come walking by, pointing. And we're like zoo animals. But we're able to be in there, and it just kind of slows everything down. And we have some really interesting conversations. But we have to physically move ourselves away from everything else to slow down, to focus on one thing.
Yeah.
And to delve deeply.
Well, and I feel like that's a good point, because we intentionally isolate ourselves in order to focus, but then that shows that part of what the problem is all the input that
Yeah.
we have. I
Yeah.
think we live in a time in life when there's an extraordinary amount of data and information and requests for response that are coming in constantly,
Yeah.
that can constantly reach us. We, with our phones always with us too, there's emails coming in, there's texts coming in, and people sort of expect a pretty quick response. When you're starting every email with, sorry for the delay, when it's been 24 hours rather
Yeah.
than, 5 hours or something, it feels like this constant pressure
Yeah.
and it keeps your feet moving, right? You feel like I have to get these things done because then I have to get to my emails and then I have to. And so I think that input is part of what makes us feel like we're spinning and we have to keep moving.
Yeah, I was walking with some friends on the last trip I was on, and we were talking about the speed of news and the globalization, like our bodies and our little brains aren't made to tolerate all the horrible things that are happening
And
all
not
over the world.
not just the information, but the expectation of some sort of response.
Right.
Like, how do you feel about this? And what are you doing about this? And it just feels overwhelming.
Yeah, and it's the best you can do is value signaling, right? I'm gonna say something on social
Virtue.
media, virtue signaling.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something on social media, and then it's meaningful. Well, all that is trying to soothe because we can't really have any control or agency over what's happening in Cambodia, but we hear about it. It's horrible. We want to have action, and enough of that just kind of burns you out.
Mhm.
And the example of this was, so our conversation was happening in the National Gallery in South Africa, and the wall was covered. You know how not normal, but most art galleries, there's like one picture and lots of white space,
Mhm.
so you can really go deeply into looking at that. The National Gallery where we were at, there was like 75 pictures on one wall. And it was overwhelming. It really got me upset because I couldn't really enjoy one painting because all of them were calling for my attention.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to, it was amazing art, but there was too much to really take in. And as we're talking about this is how I feel about life.
Mhm.
My life right now is like a gallery with too many pictures on the wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and most galleries have maybe 1% of their holdings in display, and
Yeah.
99% is in archive. What would it look like in our lives to have that much in archive and really attending to just 1%
Mm.
of the important things?
It's a good analogy because it's not gone. It's
No.
just in the
And we can rotate it around.
it's in the storage area
Yeah.
while you kind of focus on a certain
Right.
genre or
And there might be a
yeah.
time that there's a special installation and we're going to like really focus on that. But yeah, that really got me thinking because it's so distracting that it's not even enjoyable. And I
Mhm.
think that's the tipping point our friend was asking, like, is this enjoyable? It's really hard even to listen to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
it's hard
said
to
some
keep
things
up
and they're
with you
like,
just listing this. Is this even fun for you anymore? Is it
yeah,
yeah.
it's like, don't put so many paintings up there.
Yeah.
So that's not a real like helpful guide, but it's a picture for me of like, okay, so what am I going to put on display
Yeah.
for the next season in
Mhm.
my little interior art museum?
No, it's a good thought. I mean, we did think about talking about sometimes we have been able to slow down, and I talked about meals, and that's been a constant for us that is a place we feel like we can focus
Yeah,
just on what matters in relationship with each other and with friends
yeah,
and family. We have regular meals with family, and that's filling, and it's kind of putting all that other stuff
yeah,
out of the gallery space.
yeah.
What are some other places or times where you feel like you're able to just
Mm.
kind of slow down, not in an escapist kind of way, but in a like actually soul filling kind of
Yeah,
way?
I was going to be funny and say sleep, but I think I'm actually thinking a lot in my sleep, so I don't think that's it. Um, to be honest, and this is repeating a lot of things, but at a baseball stadium,
Yeah.
is where
You often call it your
I, it
sanctuary.
is. It's a place where I feel like I'm being filled up
Hmm.
rather than having to, because there's nothing to do, right? That's what your dad told me. This is a boring game. It's 3 hours of sitting without anything to do.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it's so enjoyable to me, because it's the place where I appreciate the activity and I can just savor it.
Hmm.
Savor every pitch, every moment, every kind of goofy comment to the neighbor that's a complete stranger.
Hmm.
And um, there's no expectation other than just to enjoy being in that space and
Hmm.
taking in the sights and the sometimes uncomfortable smells of a baseball stadium. How about for you?
Well, we thought about the idea of, when you go on vacation, it's relaxing. That's
Nope.
never for us. We tend to be just as busy on vacation.
We sprint through
We do.
vacations.
But thinking about it, some things associated with that, I do feel like travel is that for me. Even if I've got a fairly busy itinerary on travel,
Yeah.
everything is narrowed down, even down to we've gotten very simple with our packing style. So just even having a tiny, tiny suitcase with just enough that I need for that week and nothing more,
Yeah.
it feels simple and it feels like I can focus and take in things that fill my soul and not think about the rest because I don't take my computer when
Yeah.
I travel. I People don't have the expectation you're going to respond to a text or something because you're on a different time zone. So I feel free of those pressures
Yeah.
and I feel my mind is still getting the stimulation that it craves because I'm seeing new things and hearing new languages, but it's not in a way that's that feels exhausting. It's a way that feels stimulating
Yeah.
and to my creativity and to my faith and all those things.
Yeah. I think another place that you just in observing, I think where you settle down and aren't hurried. I love being at church with you because I can just see you being able to settle in. It focuses you. There's a sense of just relaxing, and it's not having to prove anything, having to do anything.
Mhm.
I just feel it as I sit next to you,
Mhm.
and it's a pretty cool moment. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't sit in church all the time,
No. I mean, we
but
could, but they might kick us out.
yeah, and I think there's times when you need to like be busy and do things, kind of seasons. But how do you build in rhythms? I think that it's not all the time. I think the
Mhm.
tipping point, and that's why I think about church, because for us, there's a commitment to go and worship and slow down every Sunday, and that rhythm is really helpful. I mean, I even wanted to. I got back at 8 a.m. and we were at church at 9:30. Not
Yeah,
because
off an international flight and we went straight to
yeah,
church.
and it wasn't because I felt we had to, but it was really restorative. People that I care about, focusing on the most important thing in my life. It was really refreshing after a very difficult travel schedule.
Mhm.
And yeah, I really appreciate that. So I think building in rhythms, because like a baseball game for me isn't a rhythm,
Right, it's every so often.
right? And a vacation or travel isn't a rhythm,
Mhm.
but there can be daily rhythms. So how do you set up each day a rhythm or
Mhm.
each week a rhythm?
I'd say one of those rhythms for us is our walks.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And we do fit that in as many times a week as we can, where we take a long walk and
Hmm.
we're really able to
Off a short
focus.
pier. No, no, no.
No. Um, no, so we're able to be together, sometimes walking in silence, often talking and sharing our thoughts with
Hmm.
each other and really not focusing on anything else.
No.
So that's a rhythm that we've intentionally built that connects us
Yeah.
and kind of restores us, moves our body, all the good things.
And sometimes it's easier than other times. Like this morning, beautiful weather. When it's the dead of winter, it's a lot harder to have those down
Well, do
times.
we need to get into my
Nope, nope. Sorry, I'm sorry.
geographical
I'm sorry I brought that up.
objections
Yeah,
to Midwest winters.
I worked really hard at slowing down and listening to you when you were talking about the luggage packing,
Uh-huh.
because I thought, yes, that's true. And I had a situation where I was regretting packing light.
Why is that?
Well, so I was on a long flight
Uh-huh.
and I got to sit next to this little 10-year-old boy whose mom was in a different row. And we were making friends. And then we had a meal service and he dumped a whole cup of Coke in my one of two pairs of pants that I had for a week trip
Yeah.
and on a 15-hour flight. So I was regretting that I had been so
But
frugal.
you survived.
I did survive, and I think I responded pretty well to the boy, because there's a moment there where I just had to slow down and breathe. But there's that. I think sometimes we think we need more than we do, even when problems happen. And so, like, this was not the ideal start to a trip, and yet I was still okay, and it allowed for some humor. It allowed for being present and getting to know the young man in a meaningful way. So when you try to slow down, I think the hardest part for me will still be saying no to things.
When I try to slow down.
When I'm I'm struggling here. When I want to slow down, I think probably the most meaningful thing will be saying no to things, and I still think I struggle with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we always will.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say we'll always struggle with that, even in our retirement years. I
get to retire. You've said no other times.
don't say no. I don't see it coming anytime soon, but
No.
we'll always be doing something.
Yeah.
But yes, doing fewer things, I think, is kind of something we're shooting for, is, being able to shelve some things for a time to be more focused and meaningful on other things, and to just not let the busyness creep into any interference with relationships, where we really want to be. So when you talked about church being a place that you feel like we can focus and slow down, just this past Sunday, we had a speaker in church who was talking about seasons of waiting.
Yeah.
And we felt this was similar to what we're talking about. We're talking about slowing down, but that's an intentional choice to move away from busyness to trying to make space and slowing down, making space in your life. Next week, we're going to talk about those seasons of waiting, because those are times when you don't have a choice, when there's an unknown about what's happening in the future, or a given time like a pregnancy, or an unpredictable amount of time like waiting for a job, or just smaller times of waiting where we're kind of stuck in this holding pattern, and how that's also hard for us. Yeah. But it's a different thing.
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes it's cyclical or expected. But we want to talk about that and how to make that a meaningful time in life.
So the listeners will just have to wait to hear about this season
have to
of
wait.
waiting.
But in the meantime, we hope you'll send us a comment.
Yeah.
Like, rate, review, all those good things.
And maybe even slow down.